What if I told you that you could create your own embossing folders with your silhouette cutting machine? Isn't that exciting? Before we jump in, I just want to take a second to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Christy over here at Crafty Christy's Creations, and I'm here to help you master your silhouette. So let's talk about embossing folders. What are they? Why do you want one? Let's dive in. Okay, so I have a Cuttlebug, which is very, very old, and they actually don't exist anymore. Another brand, these are like die cutting machines, would be like a Sizzix Big Shot, and there's other ones out there. That's the other one that I'm mostly familiar with. But they have these, I've always seen them in plastic, and these are called embossing folders. They bend at the top. And then if you look at the inside, maybe it's better, I don't know if you can tell, but so this side here has this one is some little flowers. These ones, the flower part is actually impressed, so it's in the plastic, whereas this side of the folder has it raised up. So this would be raised up off of the flat surface, and this would be embossed, and then when it's depressed, that's called debossing. And when you run this through your embossing machine, it has a bunch of shims that you put in it, and then you slide it through your machine, and it creates pressure to press that impression of whatever this is. It stretches out your cardstock and then puts that impression on your cardstock. I still hold on to these. These are something that I do use to add a little extra something to my card designs. Especially I have a wood grain texture. That one is probably the one I reach for the most. But I'm going to show you how to create something similar to this. We're going to create an embossing folder that is just lines. So here is a completed card that I created, and you can see on that background how these triangles are sticking up. They're embossed, and then these lines are debossed, meaning they push into the paper. So it stretches out your paper to give it some texture, and that just adds extra interest to your card design. So let's jump into Silhouette Studio and we'll get started creating our own embossing folders. Woohoo! Okay, so I've already pulled in my diamond square pattern. This is part of the geometric line art bundle. And I will link that bundle down below in case you want to grab this for yourself. We can go ahead and just get rid of the little blurb there, and then we're going to work with this pattern and we're going to turn it into our embossing folder. So the first thing we need to do is come over here to our offset panel. We're going to do an offset. That's 0.06. I'm actually going to turn that down 0.045. I like that. I'm going to hit apply. And then we're going to pull our original off to the side. Now here is our design that we're going to use. And this is just a little bit over 7 by 7. Now for my die cutting machine that I have, and it will only fit 5 inches wide. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a box that's 5 by 7. So the width is going to be 5 and the height is going to be 7. And that's a good, unlock the ratio aspect, 5 by 7. And that's, I mean, that's a good size for a card anyways. And I'm just going to give this a different color to make it easier to see. And then I'm going to use this. Let's make this a little bit transparent. Fill panel. Wrong thing. Okay, transparency here. There we go. Now that's the transparency of my purple box. Because I'm going to choose a section out of this design, so I want to make sure I can see through it. And to make this even easier, let's go ahead and give this a color as well, and we'll get rid of those outlines. And this just makes it easier to tell where things are. And I want to get things lined up in a manner that I like the way that it's going to look. I kind of like that right there, but I want my edges to be cohesive. Oh, and it looks like the tops and bottoms. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this and I'm just going to pull this corner a little bit. Actually, what I want to do, we're going to shrink the top and bottom a little bit. I can leave that there. And then I'm going to click on this design and I'm actually going to shrink in my edges a little bit. I want a crisp edge on both sides. So that one's pulling in, this one I'm pulling out. And then I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here so I can see better how those edges look. And I can just kind of scoot this. Okay, I like that. I like the top there. Let's pull this side out. I'm going to be like halfway on that edge. Or you can decide to just completely take that edge off, which might actually be easier. So slightly over the edge there, and then slightly off the edge there. See how I have white on the edge? Come on. Okay, so now I have a little bit of white on both sides. And then I can decide to do the same thing at the top. I think I like the way that looks. Let's see what the bottom looks like. We're kind of flush on that bottom. I'm gonna pull this down just a little bit. I think I want some of that bottom cut off. And you can do this and make it look however you want. I like the way that looks there. So it's gonna crop out all of those areas. I like the way that looks. Okay, so now I'm going to rubber band select both pieces and I'm gonna center them. And then I'm gonna come over to my modify panel and I'm gonna hit crop. And what that did was it cropped my outline into that 5x7 shape. So now you can see that this is 5 inches wide and 7 inches tall. So this will fit perfectly in my die cutting machine. All right, I like the way that looks. So now I am going to come in again and create another box that is again 5x7, 5 tab 7, whoops, tab 7, enter. And then that is going to be my outline that goes around to cut that out. So I like that. I'm cutting this out of chipboard and my page is 7x7 and I'm using my Cameo 4. I'm not 7x7. My media is 12x12. Let's try that. There we go. And then I just like to turn this transparency down a little bit so I can see those grid lines through the back. That looks good. This I'm just going to group together. And now we can zoom back out and then let's get this laid on here. Now we're going to have to make a couple of copies of this because on that embossing folder you need to have raised edges and recessed edges. So I'm going to end up cutting 3 copies of this. So I'm just going to turn this sideways, holding down the shift key will get me that perfect right angle. And I'm going to start about there. And then let's do control and down arrow will make me a second copy. And then I'm just going to give that a little bit of space there. And 2 copies is all I'm going to get on a sheet here. That's fine. And then we're going to come over to the send panel. Like I said, I'm cutting this out of chipboard. So let's find their, they have this chipboard. Oh, and let me turn on my machine here. Okay, so now our tool will come. We're just going to use the auto blade. We're waiting for that so we can make some adjustments to our settings. So while that's waiting, oh, there we go. Okay, it's ready to load material. Well, there we go. Okay, so this has a blade depth of 4. I find it needs to be a little bit deeper than that. Force of 33. We're going to use this little button here. Speed of 1. I'm actually going to do a speed of 2 passes, but I'm going to turn that blade up. Let's try a blade of 6 and see what that looks like. And let's go over to our machine. I'm going to show you why. Okay, so what I have here is chipboard, and I went ahead and put some double-sided tape on the back. That's what this white piece is. And then I know I'm going to have 2 pieces. And then I've got my mat. Ooh, that was loud. So I want to make sure this side here, I've done some test cutting in the past, but I have not tried test cutting with this material here, but it'll be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and just get this loaded on here. And then we can load this in. So I'm using the double-sided tape on the back because that is going to go ahead and I'll make this a little bit easier than me to have to use liquid glue. All right, that's all ready. We're going to do that blade depth of 6, force 33, 2 passes, and a speed of 2. Everything looks good. We're loaded, auto blades detected, and we're just going to hit send. All right, I'm going to let that cut out, and I will be back. Okay, I've got one sheet cut out. This is when it's helpful to have 2 cutting mats, so I can leave this on here and cut again. I ended up using a blade depth of 7, force 33, speed of 2, and 2 passes, and that worked really well. You can see here as I kind of peel things off, that worked very well. I'm gonna try to just peel the outline and try to leave all of the shapes on here. There is some stickiness on the back. Remember, we put that sheet on there, so there's a lot of material. Sometimes those sticky pieces, you gotta kind of work them a little bit. But the reason I'm gonna do it this way is because I wanna try to keep everything like intact here. So as I go to turn this into an embossing folder, things are a little bit easier to work with. Come on. There we go. Okay, stay down there. All right, so it's mostly stayed together. The other thing I did was I cut 2, used my paper trimmer and just cut 2 pieces of the chipboard. These are 5 by 7 each. And now what we're going to do is we're going to transfer this onto one of these. This is why I put that double-sided tape on the back. So let's do this so we can see what we're doing. So we're just going to work on one right now. And the easiest thing to do is see if I can't get this. Yes. With that on the back, it makes it a little bit easier to pick this off kind of as one sheet. And I think the easiest thing that we're going to be able to do here is I'm just going to try to set this on there. We see that it's going to work well. And then for this, I'm going to just come through and I'm going to try to just peel the backing off. Some of this sounds like it'll work in my head, but it might not work out as easily as I want it to. But I want to just stick down, either you want to do just the triangles or you want to do just the rectangles. Because when you make an embossing folder, you'll notice that you get kind of either or. And it might be easier too if we have to just kind of peel some of the edges off, and that might have to be how we do it. Okay, well, you know what? We're just gonna break this apart, and then we can stick these pieces down individually. I didn't say that this wasn't going to take a while, because it definitely is. So let me get this all broken up and I will be back in a minute. Okay, I peeled off the outer edge piece here, and then I've got some of the triangle pieces are left here and the rest are kind of scattered around. You'll notice there's two different sizes to our triangles. So it was helpful to kind of leave them on here, but now I'm gonna take this piece, I'm gonna flip it over, and then I'm just gonna line it up with the edges. Again, I cut this as a 5x7. And I'm just gonna get those edges lined up the best that I can. And it's okay if it doesn't go like all the way to the edge. It looks like that top edge. I think it's better to start at the bottom because I can see it. But you'll notice that it's not quite all the way to the outside edge on both of these, and that's completely fine. You want to leave room on there for those triangles to fit. And then I'm just going to press this on all the way. And then that is my first layer. Now, what I can do is I hopefully can take this piece. I guess that's not going to be that easy. In my head, I had like, oh, this will be so easy. You just kind of put these pieces down, and then when you actually sit down and do it, you're like, it's not really that easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with these triangles, and I'm going to put them down into these holes, figure out which way they go, and just try to slide these back into place. So now I have the sticky part facing up. And what this is going to do is I can get them locked into place on here. Then when I go to remove the stickiness, these will fit perfectly when I go to flip this over. So I guess before I do this section, it would be better to put this one down first. So let me just try to get this all lined up on here so these will fit, because this is the majority. And then I can just try to sneak these in. And I'm trying to peel that, maybe leave that backing if I can. If it peels off, it peels off. Looks like they're gonna peel. But either way, I'm just gonna come through and try to just stick these in the holes here with the sticky material facing up. Okay, this is quickly becoming a nightmare. It's definitely better to leave the sticky material on them. Now when I cut these, I cut them to be die cuts. So meaning I cut it so that the backing would cut through the entire backing as well, not just to like peel these off. The other thing we could do is pull in another piece here, and then what I can do with this one is once again pull out all of these pieces, but then laying it on top, just because you're gonna have to make one piece this way and one piece this way. So you're just gonna have to decide for yourself which is easier to do. If you want to take the time and go through and set all these in here, I think that's really probably the best way to do it. And then we can just set this other piece right on top, and then it'll pick up all of these inner spots. Okay, I got all of them in the right place. It was definitely easier to have them on the backing. These ones down here that were on the backing were a lot easier to pop them right into the correct space. Now all I have to do is come through, take the backings off of all of these. The corner pieces are going to be a little bit tricky, but peeling off all the backings, and then what we'll do is we'll take this sheet, line it up, lay that down flat so that everything ends up in the correct place. And then this will be the other side of our embossing folder, and then we'll repeat the process 2, maybe 3 more times. So let me peel all those backings and then we'll move on to the next step. Well, it turns out peeling those and getting them popped back in is not as easy as you would think. Okay, so here is my second set of the X's. This is the side that has the stickiness. We'll go ahead and make sure that we've got those lined up there. And then again, I'm going to start at the bottom and get those lined up perfectly on top of the second layer. Now, some of these triangles that I already put in there, I had to just make sure that none of the paper was still pressing over where these line up to make sure that these are going to fit very nicely in the correct place. And then I'm just going to take my time and press these down. So adding this second layer is going to make it easier for those little triangles to fit into place. But also we're doing this because on the finished, you're going to want that all of the height that's on here, and that's going to help make that impression stand out even more. Okay, so that is much better. So now I can easily come through here and then just peel the stickiness off, and those layers of triangles will fit on, whoops, as long as you don't touch them with your finger, that's the hard part. But they will kind of just fit in here a lot easier, and I'm just going to try to peel off all of the backings out of those little areas, and that's just going to make it so much easier to come through here. Oh, and this one seems to be underneath. So because I had to do, oops, 2 layers of, or 2 passes on my cut, the second pass did not always quite perfectly line up. So some of these, when you lay them down, overlap a little bit, slightly kind of out of the correct area. But I'm just going to come through and then just continue to peel up the backings, and then I'll fill in. I peeled all the edges and kind of laid them off to the side. I'll put those back in, and then we'll be able to fold that over. So let me go through and peel all those off. Okay, I changed my mind again about how we're going to do this. So I've already peeled all that, and you can see how these pieces are so easily just still sitting on here, which is great. It makes that a lot easier. So now what I can do is I can kind of tell where these are going to go. What I'm going to do is peel these, punch these out, and now I can take that and lay that right in there on top of that first layer that I've already peeled, and that's just going to pop right in on top of there. And then I'm just going to go through and do that with all of these first layers. I can come through and just peel off these second layers. I kind of want to try to keep that backing on there right now. It just makes it a little bit easier, but how much easier is this now to come through and just lay these right on top of the layer that's already there. They're just going to pop in very nicely, and that'll create my second layer. And then when we flip, we only have to flip and line them once. So let me go through and continue doing this. Okay, I have most of the little triangles in 2 sides, And what I'm going to do, because I've peeled the backing off of most of them, you can see here. So I'm just going to take the back and I'm just going to line that up on the corners here. Press that on down there. If it's not lined up perfect, that's okay. But I'm just going to get that pressed on there. And then I'm going to come in with some tape. And I'm going to pick one corner and I'm going to tape that down really, really well. So this corner looks pretty well aligned. So I'm just going to come down here on this corner and tape that together. This will be the side that hinges open and closed. Flip everything over. Keep that tape nice and taut. And then for now, I'm just going to leave it like that. Let's press everything on here, see what goes ahead and sticks. And then I can go ahead and just open up. Let's see here. Come on. And it might be a little bit difficult to peel those layers apart, because we went ahead and did the 2 layers of both. But let's go ahead and just get those peeled apart. And we're just trying to transfer all of those triangles. You can see some of it's working. Part of the problem is they're tucked in there so well that you really just have to work those out. So as I do this, I'm just slowly taking my finger through here, trying to pick up layers as I can. Okay, so we got some. Not all of it, but that's okay. I didn't expect all of it to come up, especially because some of it we still had backings on. And then other spots we did not have the backings peeled off yet. So now what I'm going to do, I did that just to make it a little bit easier to peel some of these areas. And then now some of these, you look at them and you're like, I don't really know where this is supposed to go, like this piece right here. So let me just get rid of that. Put some of these kind of back in where they belong. And then I'm just going to peel the rest of these backings, and then I'm going to do that same process, fold it over, and see if we can't pick up more of these areas here. So just peeling back the rest of these. You know, there's probably an easier way to do this, but this is kind of what I found to make things the most accurate. So now what I'm going to do, come down again and then just pick up those areas right here that I just worked on. And then we can lift that back up. And you can see as I'm doing that, some of these want to pick up. You might have to just help those along a little bit. Okay, and I picked up a few more that time, so that was good. And then I can just peel some more. And then if I need to, I can always come in with some liquid glue. And you can see I don't have all of them laid down here. I thought, let me just start, because now it was getting to the point that my hand was sticking to everything. So I was like, let me just come through here, pick up what I can. And then the rest, we can always, once we get at least one layer down over here, I can always just add them right to that. So we'll do this again. We'll go ahead and pick up a few more. Okay, here is my completed embossing folder. So I did 3 layers of the lines and then 2 layers of the rectangles. Some of these did not line up perfectly, so we'll just see how it goes. This is a 5x7 piece of cardstock. This is just 60 pound. And I'm just going to go ahead and set that in there. And you can see I've got my Cuttlebug here. And what I'm going to do, I've got my base and my B plate. Every machine's going to be a little bit different as to what you need in there. And then I've got another B plate that goes on top. And then I'm just going to slide that through. And because of all the layers I have on the inside, that seems to be enough. Otherwise, if you've got some leftovers from your chipboard, you might need to make a shim. You can certainly do that. And just for good measure, I'm going to go back and forth just to make sure we've got a really good impression all the way down to the end. There we go. Okay. All right, moment of truth. Let's see what this looks like. And it looks fabulous. Look at all that awesome texture on there. And then here's the other side of it. You know, the bottom doesn't look quite as great, but not too shabby for a homemade embossing folder. Okay, here is your pretty happy birthday card. Look at all that texture from our embossing folder that we created. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, so make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you like this new technique of creating an embossing folder with your silhouette cutting machine. What a cool, neat trick. Now, I will say that the design that we did for this one was a little bit more advanced. You can certainly make things a lot easier by just cutting out very simple or larger shapes out of your chipboard than this diagonal piece. But that is, you know, go big or go home, right? So the links for that geometric line art bundle will be in the description below, along with the rest of the supplies that I used. Here are some other great videos for you to watch, more things that you can do with your silhouette. That's what I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next one.